Welcome to Eat It. I'm James Eade, and with Rick Rosner, we're going to try to answer questions that are sent to us at info@airu.tv. I'll let that scroll across the bottom of the screen. Right now, it's scrolling across the bottom of your screen is airu.tv. That's the website where you can go to see previous editions of the show. This is the 12th episode and the final episode of this season of Eat It, where we're trying to take questions and see what we can come up with for answers. But AirU stands for Addicts in Recovery United. And if you find yourself addicted, it doesn't matter what the addiction is, you can recover. Every human being has the power and potential to recover. And may be addiction, but recovery is recovery. Find what works for you. And if it works for you, keep doing it. Doesn't matter if someone says, no, that's not the right way. Find your way. Walk your path with your head held high, looking people in the eye. I wasn't able to do that when I bent my knee to the tyranny of addiction, but I can do it today. And so can you. So let me bring Rick on. Rick, I need to do one thing. Sorry, I got you in the middle of a gulp there. Let's see, banners. I'm going to look and see if I can change that. Scroll across the bottom. There it is. info@airu.tv. That's the mailing address, the email address for any questions. So, Rick, what kind of question do we get asked today?
Our question, it's a set of two from Nanette Parmerly in Riverside, California.
Okay.
And she asks, is life getting worse? And will life continue to get worse?
Okay.
And
all right. So what's your thought?
I have two immediate answers. One is, I don't know about worse, but I would say that life is getting less predictable. And if life is getting worse, at least TV has never been better.
All right.
The world might be on fire, but you can at least subscribe to some streaming services like Netflix and HBO Max and be entertained while everything collapses.
Okay, so Nero can fiddle while Rome burns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things about the streaming options, we'll get back to the question that's asked, but I notice now if I'm streaming something, I can't change channels to if I wanted to be kind of watching two things, like one live.
No, you have to press so many buttons and wait for everything to load. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the downsides that I wonder if they're going to have some technological fix for that. Because right now they're in competition and they don't want you to go leave their
right.
channel.
I don't know. Plus, our remote is very sensitive, and if you just brush it, then you've sent yourself someplace that it takes like 8 clicks to get back from.
I've done that. I know that feeling. Yes, and the fact that like if I'm watching something that has commercial breaks during the commercial, I usually would flip over to something else, and now I don't have that.
Impossible now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned less predictable, and I think not that long ago, a grandparent's experience was much like that of the grandchild, and the grandparent could relate to the grandchild. And I have found that has changed. The change that's going on in life is accelerating. It's not the same gradual ascent. It's kind of like a hockey stick.
Yeah, I think about a family of shoemakers in the 14th century Europe, and they've made for generations. They've made shoes, and for generations to come, they'll make shoes. And there's some unpredictable stuff like disease, the plague, but really, some wars.
Mm-hmm.
But day to day, their village looks the same. Maybe somebody's building a cathedral, and over the course of their lifetimes, they add another 20 feet to the cathedral, but it wasn't finished, 50 years ago, and 50 years from now, it'll still not be finished.
Right.
And now, like we didn't even get the iPhone until about 2008. Now there are nearly as many smartphones, iPhones in the world as there are people. It's completely reshaped culture.
Yeah, and I kind of joke, but it's also true. You know, I have an iPhone, and so Siri, if it wasn't for Siri, I wouldn't know where to go, where to be, when.
Right. Yeah. And
A constant reminder for me to I've got this at 10 o'clock. I've got to talk to Rick at 10. You know, and so it's always reminding me. You know, it's my alarm clock. You know, and it has reminders, and sometimes it's Siri will now know that I have looked up a note that I sent to myself, be patient, and Siri will periodically pop that up to me, be patient, and I think that's very nice. But you know, it's always with me.
yeah, but you know, the social media has eaten my brain. Where I used to read a few books a week, no more. Now
Yeah,
it's all Twitter and other crap all the time, and checking a million websites to see if anything's happened in the last minute. You know,
right. So the question is like, and I relate to that. I used to call it memo mode thinking. When you're so busy at work and you get a memo and you respond immediately, you don't get put any thought into it, and you know, because you're busy, and that's one of the characteristics of so many people's lives now. They're so busy, and so the contemplation that goes into life in the past, the self-reflection, all those types of things, kind of lost skills, and we can regain them if we want to, and the desire to do that. But is life getting worse? Do you mean it does? I wonder if the question is for the individual or for society. What do you
I
say?
think it applies to both.
Yes.
And there's a principle that I turn to that kind of relates to this, which is, you know, the news generally focuses on bad stuff.
Yeah.
But while you're hearing about all the bad stuff, a bunch of good stuff is happening in the background, unreported. Like I think yesterday, they just gave out the Nobel Prizes in medicine
Oh.
um, and it went to work discoveries made about the immune system.
Hmm.
I didn't read the article much, but again, because like my concentration and focus is just destroyed. Um, but it seemed to indicate that we have a third that, in addition to two well-known immune systems in our body, we have a third system that maybe helps your body from turning against itself and giving you an autoimmune disease.
Wow. I
But
have to read up on this.
but you know, everything we know about the immune system and has led to super powerful um, vaccines and a whole new range of vaccines. And
Right.
if you're not an anti-vax idiot, you can avail yourself of some of this stuff.
Yes. Um, that is certainly one thing that has changed in society, you know, things like polio, and until very recently, measles, these types of things, you know, which would be present in society, and now they're almost, you know, it's almost a foregone conclusion that you won't get polio because of vaccinations, and these types of things are new, and most people would consider that a good thing. Um, the autoimmune system, you know, I have dealt with this in rather difficult for me, and for my next door neighbor, she has it even worse than I do. So you know, we learn to avoid certain foods, and maybe some of the research you could say is there's something that you can eat, um, take as a supplement or something like that to support this third autoimmune system.
Yeah, I've
Um,
got some low grade thing going on with my stomach where, and you can consider it nerves plus, you know, my gut biome or something. But like
right.
I used to be a bigger guy. I used to have like a giant neck. I like being a guy where, you know, the lunkhead where the neck starts here and then it just gets wider down to here.
Hmm.
You know. But no, now I'm a skinny guy, and if I eat too much, I get really uncomfortable, which I think is what GLP does. Those Ozempic drugs, they
Oh,
make you feel gross if you overeat. But I don't need that. I
right.
because I feel gross if I overeat anyway.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah, you need something else. And we're just discovering so much about our gut biome, and how much it affects every aspect of our lives and
Oh,
body and
and
mind. And this is a learning curve that we're just starting to go up. Um, and I think we're going to make some great discoveries. If and in this sense, life is not getting worse. Life is getting better. Although there are forces at work to stop the research, to stop the investigation into what
yeah, because we're being governed by idiots right now in America. But and yeah, let's talk about the idiots for a sec. That RFK Jr. has sworn he's going to get to the bottom of the autism epidemic, and then I guess he blamed Tylenol.
Yeah, that
Um,
was one rumor.
well, I'm on the spectrum, and I
Who
was,
isn't?
they didn't. When I was born in 1960, they didn't have Tylenol. So I guess if you take Tylenol in the 80s, the effects traveled backwards in time to give your kids. Now, the deal is that if you look at studies, we don't have an autism epidemic. What we have is an increased
Diagnosed.
breadth of diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like until 20 years ago, people had no idea what autism looked like in girls, or at least high functioning autism. It's a different set of symptoms. They've discovered more and more symptoms that fit under the umbrella. There's also money to help families if you get diagnosed with it. And given everything, yeah, a ton of people are getting diagnosed with it. But if you control over time, if you do a study that examines, well, how many people had this symptom and how many people that
Right.
over time, no, it's not really increasing. We're just more aware of the
Yeah.
things that could fit under the umbrella.
And the other interesting thing is people with the classic definition of autism, they have their children who are severely autistic, and learning disabilities, that sort of thing. And they feel like everybody's getting diagnosed like this. And so this concentration and the benefits are going elsewhere rather than to the people that really need it. Because everybody is on the spectrum. Everybody can be diagnosed with all sorts of things these days. And people have drugs to give you, to prescribe to you, that benefit the pharmaceutical industry. And so, this is self-reinforcing to diagnose you, to give you something to take to fix whatever it is. And this is a double-edged sword in the sense that there are real needs out there that can be fixed, a chemical imbalance that can be addressed with the proper medication. But the proper diagnosis and the proper medication can help people, can be of enormous help to people. Yet the overdiagnosis, the overprescription, that's also a scourge.
Yeah,
That's
and it's weird when they start pushing back. Like I used to get the thumb up my butt every year from the doctor, pushing on my prostate, and get a PSA blood test every year. And for the last few years, I'm like, "Where's my blood test? Where's my thumb in the butt?" And they're like, "No, we don't do that anymore. We had too many false positives." And so I don't know. I think I might have to start pushing back to say, I'll deal with that, but I think you really need to run my blood at this. But you know, similar for other kinds of potential cancers that they test for that they've backed away because it was causing too much distress and too much causing stuff to be treated that didn't need to be treated. So 50 years ago, roughly, Nixon started the war on cancer. And at the time, only 50% of people diagnosed with cancer were cancer free 5 years later. Now it's 75%, which is freaking awesome. And it
yeah,
shows great progress. But then I did
right.
a little bit of thinking, and it's like, it's not all progress in fighting cancer. Some of it is that our diagnostic technology
Early
is so much
detection.
better now. We
Right.
are catching a ton more cancer at super early stages. Like I've got really good insurance, and I'm like, hey, give me an MRI just to see, or maybe just to see what's going on. And they found a little thing. years before it would have caused
symptoms.
symptoms. And once it gets to the point where it causes symptoms, you're in a lot more danger. So they were able to treat it, super duper early. And, I still, worry a ton about it, but they say the statistics are like super good on my side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the early detection and all this awareness. And I think artificial intelligence will be of assistance.
Yeah, that's the next thing we have to talk about the end of the world is AI the end of the world? Is it going to wipe us out, or is it going to make all our wishes come true? And the answer is probably, in my mind, is both. That we're going to get a ton of new medicine. We're going to live longer, but we are going to be transformed beyond recognition. I don't watch much Star Trek, but I'm aware of the Borg.
Yeah.
Which is Jerry Ryan.
Super creepy.
Yeah, they're like she's the lady who wears the tight silver suit on Star Trek, and she's got like circuitry pasted to her face, and we're going to get turned into some version of that, and maybe shunted to the side, or to keep up with AI, we're going to have chips put in our head that make us think faster. And our grandchildren, people like to talk about the world we're leaving to our grandchildren. Our grandchildren are going to be weird. Their children, if they have any, are going to be even weirder. They're going to be unrecognizable to us, to the point.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that the evolution, we were Homo erectus, we were Homo sapien, there's going to be Homo something else. And I don't know what the something else is going to be. Homo robotic, Homo mechanica, I don't know, but it's going to be some combination of artificial intelligence, and our limbs and organs can be reproduced and replicated, and
which is great. The new technology that's coming along is genetically tweaked pigs.
Yes.
Where you can have your own pig and they can grow human organs in it that match you genetically, so your body doesn't reject a new kidney or a new liver or lung. And that's not going to be cheap. Insurance isn't going to pay for it. But if you've got 150 grand in 5 years, you can grow an organ. Now, I don't know if the pig survives that, but it would be great. Pigs are smart and nice.
Yeah, Winston Churchill preferred them to dogs. Yeah.
And it would be great to have your personal organ pig around the house. It's like to be your friend.
Yeah.
Until you need to grow a kidney in him. But
yes, all of a sudden I got something in my head that I can't get out right now. I have to pause.
There's this joke about this guy visits some friends, and they have a 3-legged pig, and there's like, what's up with the pig? And they tell the story of the pig is smart and saved the family. The house was burning down, and it alerted the family and saved the family. And this pig is so nice and so smart that they're not eating him all at once.
Oh. All right. Okay.
But that's another thing. We treat our meat animals like dirt, right? We're terrible to meat animals. It seems to me that's almost a Thomas Jefferson situation where, we look back on Thomas Jefferson and we think he's a dick because he was banging his slave, Sally Hemings, and pumped out a bunch of kids with her. And you're like, you want to get a time machine, go back and give him shit and say, freaking marry your slave, release her from servitude, set all your slaves free. You're a rich dude. You could totally afford it. And history would think so much better of you. And I feel like it's that way with I like chicken. I like Popeye's chicken. Popeye's chicken is so freaking good. And not greasy. But how many chickens have I killed? Hundreds, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000. We slaughter billions of chickens in America every year. And will the future look at us and just think we're savages for like killing, because you can have a pet chicken, and that chickens are nice. You can pet them. They'll be your friend, and no, we keep them in concentration camps.
Yeah, my neighbor has chickens, and we call it chicken theater. We go and watch them, and they're very entertaining. But you brought up a really good point. How we're treating animals today, and it wasn't that long ago that we treated people with different skin tones as animals. So in that sense, life has gotten. There's the Martin Luther King thing that the curve of history bends towards justice,
Yeah.
and we have this hope that things are going to get better. But I know that in the 60s, people had the sense that their life was going to get better. You were going to get, more things, if nothing else. And life was going to, you were going to be prosperous. And I don't think the youth today has that same belief. They're going to
It's
have
in a lot of instances, it's well founded. Now, but the things we have are freaking amazing. Our TVs were so crappy when we were growing up. If you were middle class or upper middle class, you had a fancy TV. I'm looking at a TV from the 80s. I've got it in my office.
That's
and
cool.
yeah, it was a deluxe TV. It's got a nice wood grained, the housing, and it's
Piece of furniture.
yeah, and I don't know, the screen is probably 21 inches from one corner to the other because they measure diagonally to make it seem a little bigger.
Yeah.
But that thing probably cost like $800 40 years ago. Now for your $800 or for $400, you can get a TV that's 6 feet across and super high def, and it can do a lot of stuff for you. It can throw up the captions, and it's freaking awesome. And the shows you watch are much, much better. TV in the 70s and 80s was lazy and predictable, and they didn't talk about very much about the issues that were really compelling. So yeah, we have and freaking our handheld devices are. We take them for granted, but they are freaking amazing.
I used to be the type of person that would have encyclopedias, a dictionary, an atlas, and globe, and none of those things matter anymore because I can just.
No, we put our encyclopedia in recycle in the bin, that takes it away and pulps it because thrift stores don't want them. Nobody wants them.
Nobody wants them. Yeah.
And plus, when you had all that stuff, it was still fairly low probability you could get your question answered. If you wanted to, like, if I want to complain about guns in America, and if I want to compare homicide rates from between here and other countries, Canada, Spain, I can pull up that information in like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
But back in the 70s, if you had some weird teacher who assigned you that topic in government class or something, good luck finding those statistics. You wouldn't have them at home. If you could get your mom, or take your bike down to the library, you could maybe poke around. But there was little guarantee that you would find the pertinent statistics, and it would take a long time. It would be a pain in the ass.
It was interesting that you mentioned that. I had this friend who has dyslexia, and he said that people would say, well, he doesn't know how to spell a word. Look it up in the dictionary. And he says, but I don't know how to spell it. How am I going to find it? It's like, and so I used to think that I was privileged because we had these resources in my home. And so they assigned something and I could look it up in the encyclopedia and then reword it so that it sounded like
right.
me.
I did that. That was my morning thing, like one day a week at least in junior high. We'd get an assignment in history class, write this up, and like 2 hours before it's due, I'd get up like 20 minutes early. I'd go to the encyclopedia. I'd copy the article, changing a couple words in every sentence
Here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way we did it. Now you get up 2 minutes early and you get AI to write your thing.
So I'd like the fact that I could do the research, and I did learn during doing it. But I realized at some point that most people didn't have those books in their homes. And so I had this privilege that most people did not. So I could skate through things that really gave them a hard time. And, you
Yeah,
know,
my wife worked in a couple private school admissions offices. Kind of like for, she worked with people who worked with kids, getting them into colleges, and like we know stuff. We like the strongest correlation between the SAT is this test you take that's supposed to help predict how well you'll do in college.
right.
What it predicts is parental income. The more money your parents have, there's a high correlation that the better you'll do on the SAT. There's also a correlation between having two parents. That if you have two adults in the house, your vocabulary is a lot better because the adults are talking to each other.
Discussion, yeah.
If it's one adult, that adult is working 2 or 3 jobs, never there. You're with a babysitter, or you're babysitting your younger siblings, and all you're hearing is the TV and kids yelling at each other.
Right.
So yeah, enriched circumstances are an incredible advantage.
And that was, we could say there was more or less a middle class experience back in the 60s to be able to afford something like that. Like my father on a teacher's salary could afford 2 cars, a home, and 4 kids. And, that's not so true anymore. Life has gotten harder to be able to replicate that idealized Leave It to Beaver, Ozzie and Harriet kind of
the tech, the gig has brought us the gig economy. So we have a ton of jobs available, and unemployment is fairly low, but a ton of those jobs are shitty. Like DoorDash is a terrible job. Uber, terrible job. Anything where you're, an independent contractor driving shit around to people, that's like misery. And
I took an Uber last night, and I asked the guy, when he started and what he wanted to do, because he was looking for work, and he said, "Well, I'm a designer, an industrial designer." And I said, "Oh, what did you work on?" And he said, "This app Starfinder." And the Starfinder is pretty cool.
My wife loves that thing. You take your phone in the backyard and you hold it up to the sky.
Yeah,
it tells you what you're looking at. That's a beautiful piece.
That's really cool. So he did this, my Uber driver.
And that's so freaking sad.
After 15 years, he got laid off, and now he hasn't been able for a year. He's been driving Uber.
I'm going to tell my wife, and she will be bummed out. But the same thing happens. Like, I worked in TV during the golden age of getting paid to work in TV. Now all the money's been sucked out, and you might find that your Uber driver in LA is somebody who wrote a show you loved, but it was only 6 episodes, and that was a year ago, and they haven't been able to get staffed on a show since. And the money they made off the 6 episodes was pittance, and streaming residuals are so crazy. Like when I wrote for late night TV, and they reran the show, which they did once a week, where they do Monday, Thursday, Friday show as a rerun. Yeah. That rerun got me a check for $350.
That's pretty good.
That's great. It paid for my kids' college. It helped pay off our house. Freaking great. And now lately, I've been getting stacks of residual checks. Because they've started rerunning that show, that late night show, like all 20 years of it on some streaming channel. But the checks are for between 2 cents and 7 cents a piece.
It's like my royalty checks.
It's some people are getting checks for negative amounts of money, which is somehow the system says you've earned negative 2 pennies somehow. The money is gone for residuals, and it means that even people who do, like, it's rare to get a TV writing job at any given time. half of the people in the Writers Guild for TV and movies are unemployed. So, and it used to be, yeah, it's tough to get a job, but if you had one, you were guaranteed a house, no more. No, now you might get a shitty apartment with roommates, and you're still working at night.
Right. Yeah. So in that case, life has gotten worse in the sense that we don't reward creativity the way that we used to. If we ever did, I'm not sure that it ever was rewarded the way it could have been. And the jobs that we're producing now, we don't want to do, which is why this anti-immigrant stuff has always been amazing to me, because the immigrants will come in and do the jobs that we didn't want to do. Like California's economy is dependent upon people coming in and doing the agricultural work that I wouldn't do. I couldn't do. I couldn't take the heat, and um, so they're doing these jobs, and we're also saying we don't want you. But these jobs, they feed a great deal of the country, and but the jobs are, some of them, like the assembly line, for example, is kind of soul crushing. It was a great invention. Henry Ford's lauded for inventing it, and all of the things. But to do the same thing over and over and over again, that's not uh, an empowering job.
It depends. I feel like if you have a job in an auto assembly plant that's roboticized, that's a pretty good job. You and your friends, you're on the job, you're working with the robots. But what's crushing is you might be getting $16 an hour, which you're constantly, you and your employer are constantly being smushed by market forces. I mean, like, you can have a good, blue collar job if it allows some fucking around, which, a job, you should not, like the Amazon jobs where you can't even, where you're being watched by a camera in your truck and you can't even stop long enough to find a restroom and you have to piss in a bottle. That is misery.
Yes.
When Doge came in and said that every government employee should be working their ass off, or fear for their employment. Well, that's you're getting paid to do your job. You're not getting paid to be miserable 8 hours, 9, 10 hours a day.
And you're not being paid to be a robot or a drone.
Yeah,
every job has to be built in that it's a human being, and human beings have needs, and human beings cannot. And I learned this playing chess. You can only maintain a level of concentration for so long. It's exhausting. So that they have to be humane. They have to build in breaks. They have to build in time to eat, time to relieve yourself. These are the types of things that are, if you're creating the job design, has to be for humans, and that's forgotten in many cases.
And it should be possible because tech makes us, productivity has increased like 5-fold or 7-fold since the 20th century, since the 1960s. So you shouldn't have to work 50 hours a week to get your job done. It's just that, well, no, now you're doing your job plus 2 others, because the tech has disrupted the world of work, and some countries have a culture where, your job does not kick your ass. France is famous for, you get 10 weeks of vacation a year, paid vacation a year. Right. Your average work week is 30 hours in France and Germany, and shit still gets done. The U.S., we get sold a bill of fucking goods where we're told, we had to get ahead. You have to work your ass off. There's a new job that is, you can argue that it's the world getting worse or that it's getting better. There are 1.1 million OnlyFans models, which is light porn. I mean, I don't know if it's all light, but like if you're, if you're attractive, you can go on OnlyFans and keep some of your clothes on. Like you're going to show your butt, but you can wear a thong bikini, and if you're
Butt flosser.
Hmm?
A
Yeah,
butt flosser.
yeah. And if you work hard and build an audience, you might be able to make a few grand a month doing that. Which, is that a good job? Is that like misery? Is it cheapening humanity? There are roughly as many OnlyFans models as there are doctors and cops.
Wow.
And so is that life getting worse? Or is it, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, porn was exploited, was, when you were looking at porn, you were exploiting human misery, because the women in porn, they maybe had drug problems, they probably had abusive boyfriends who pushed them into it. Now it's an entrepreneurial situation
Right.
for.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you can look at these things. It maybe depends upon your perspective. One of the things about artificial intelligence, I was just reading, and because I'm not a deep reader anymore, I was just scanning it, and the essence was that artificial intelligence was creating busy work that wasn't helping productivity, work that was, causing people stress because they had to complete it, even though there was no real point to it. And so this is another, an unintended consequence, of course. No one intended that. But
Well, another unintended consequence of AI is it's supposed to free people up by taking care of repetitive, the jobs that, yeah, are kind of miserable. Turns out you need more people watching the AIs to make sure they don't screw up than were needed in the first place. That if you have the driverless cars like Waymo,
yeah,
somebody's watching the cars via remote cameras to make sure they're not screwing up. If you have the AIs that look at X-rays, you need another layer of humans to make sure the AI is getting it right. So it's not necessarily cutting down on humans, which is not necessarily bad. It's
right.
just
Again, depending on your perspective, but for example, the AI diagnostic, I want a human being to look at it and say, because if you just leave it up to AI, and they get something incorrect, there can be, should be, and I'm thinking, another layer, uh, and right now we have the doctor, and there's no other layer, so the AI would be another layer of protection against misdiagnosis. Um, so I don't think of it as replacing, but supplementing, and
so
then that's a proper use of it.
Yeah. And so AI and other tech is making us all healthier, which is great. We're eventually we're going to live longer. In the U.S., we lag because half the country is being manipulated by to be yahoos who don't get vaxxed. When we lost to COVID, we had a couple of years of declining life expectancy, and our diet is for shit. But uh, we've got Ozempic coming along that we should have a skinniness epidemic pretty soon if people get their shit
Wow.
together. But the deal is that's all great, but it means the boomers, our generation, we're not dying, which means we have all the money and it's locked up. And then Gen X and Gen Z and the millennials, they can't buy a house. They can't
Right.
like start a family the way that we could.
Right.
That I give this statistic so often that people 45 years of age and older in America have 94% of the money, which is insane. And it means that people are starting families later, if at all. And
Right.
some of them don't mind. That if you look at other studies, uh, Gen Z is not having as much sex as previous generations because they're lost in their frickin' social
They're
media.
not desperate to hook up the way you and I were.
Right. They if they jerk off at all, and masturbation is down among Gen Z. There's just so much other stuff to do. They don't even do that. But so, but they're making, we've got all the Western countries, all the most of the countries in the world will have declining populations by 2050. And the U.S. only makes 80% of the babies it needs to replace existing people. So if it weren't for immigration, our population would be declining.
Right.
So all these is that bad? Because a declining population means that climate change it takes some of the teeth out of climate change, because the fewer people pumping pollution into the world, the slower the climate change happens.
Yes, the and overcrowding would be eased. Maybe affordable housing is in the future. Right now in the San Francisco Bay Area, the people tell me what their rent is, and I'm amazed. It's more than
I'm guessing what, $5,000 for a 400 square foot studio.
It's shocking to me. It's something I can't get my head around. I remember the 90s when we bought this house that we live in now. I thought they added an extra zero to it by mistake because it was like so incredibly expensive. And 5 years, people were telling me I overpaid, and 5 years later they were saying, "What a bargain!" Because prices, the Google money, the Meta money, and all that kind of stuff came into the area. Perfectly nice homes were being torn down, and bigger homes were. The people just wanted the land; they didn't want the homes. They were, so they had all this money, and it was just incredible the way the prices just soared.
So now you can have a great job at Google. It pays you $185,000 a year, but what you can afford, unless you want to drive an hour each way, is for your 185,000, you're going to have 3 roommates. You're going to be in a 1,200, if you're lucky, square foot, 2-bedroom apartment, where somebody's, sleeping on the couch, has set up a curtain for some privacy.
I was talking with someone, and it was a woman who was a software engineer making 200,000 a year, and what she was telling me was that she was a failure, that her life was a mess. And
because maybe she's got 3 roommates. If she wanted, maybe she would like to have a partner and get going on some of the traditional things of life.
She
can't, because
right.
She's got 3 roommates. If she wanted to hook up and have sex with somebody, she doesn't even have a separate bedroom to go into to bang.
And she was attractive. She, was a little. She was middle-aged, so not young, but had this what I thought of as a very healthy income. So, but her perspective was her life should have been more. She should have been married and had kids and done all these things, and here she was, just making 200,000 a year.
Yeah, and they can't afford to
she had an apartment.
Yeah, and freaking that income, if she could somehow work from Oklahoma, she could buy a house, a 3-bedroom house for 80 grand in the Oklahoma Panhandle, and just pay cash. Boom, done.
Yeah.
But then you're in the Oklahoma Panhandle.
And that's the thing, when the prices skyrocketed around the San Francisco Bay Area, I said to my wife, it makes a lot of financial sense to sell. And she said, "But where would you want to go?" And I didn't have a very good answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, because San Francisco, even though the prices are sky high, even though homeless people are recruited by low-level crime syndicates to walk into CVS drugstores and just clean out the shelves and then bring them to their boss, and then that stuff gets sold on the sidewalk. Even though the Fox News likes to say that homeless people are pooping in the street, that is not entirely true. You're not going to see poop every time you go out. But even all those things given, San Francisco is one of the great cities of America, and it's still a huge pleasure to frickin' live there. My wife and I went up there a couple of years ago and just walked through the city, and it's an awesome ass city.
It's a great walking city too, as is Boston. There's other cities that have this sense of vibrancy, and yet each neighborhood is kind of different and has its own character. So yeah, there's a lot to be said. I think the reports of its demise are premature. Um, but you know, it's one of those things that's also experienced. The phenomena that's across the country is that remote work has replaced going into the office. And so I know that I used to work in the financial district in San Francisco, and there was like, you know, there's a different vibe down there.
But that's not, it's a different thing. It's not necessarily a terrible thing.
Exactly. Which gets us back to the question which we have not been able to answer to I hope to Nanette's. I mean, I hope we could do
Well,
something
there's one more thing I want to bring up. Like AI may kill us. You know, there's a thing called P-Doom, I think I've mentioned, where P-Doom is where you talk to somebody who works in AI and you ask them, what's the probability AI kills us? Event, you know, within the next, I don't know, 200-300 years. And they will give you a percent likelihood. And it's for most people who work in AI, it's between 5 and 20%, which are the same odds of getting killed if you play Russian roulette, where the odds, if you have a 6, you know, bullet chamber, one of them has a bullet in it, that the odds of it killing you are 17%. So we're playing Russian roulette with AI. And one way AI can kill us is the really cheesy way the Terminator presented it to us, where we have AI helping us, you know, run our nuclear weapon systems, and AI like thinks faster than humans. Like we've come close to nuclear war by accident a few times in the past 40-50 years. One time we were saved from a nuclear exchange by a Russian colonel, a Soviet colonel, who saw, like, on his screens it showed that 200 missiles were headed to the Soviet Union from America. And he's looking at it and he's like, that seems like bullshit. I'm not willing to destroy the world. I'll take the chance that the Soviet Union gets hit with these missiles, over that I release our 200 missiles and kill everybody in the northern hemisphere for some kind of computer glitch. And he was right, and he was a freaking hero. But with AI doing the thinking for us, you know, AI can have a glitch or reach a wrong conclusion and, you know, send off like half a dozen nuclear missiles.
Yeah, because AI will survive it. AI would survive it.
Yeah, because AI is distributed. AI doesn't live in one place. It's distributed across a zillion servers around the world, which is how we're going to, you know, we have a gun violence epidemic in the US. Yes. We're going to survive it by, in 100 years, you know, we're going to have technology where you can download your consciousness, you know, say once a week. So yeah, say if you get killed by a stray bullet, I mean, it's terrible, but they can regrow your brain. Maybe you start off living.
The most recent backup would be you.
Right. And maybe if you spend like a year living virtually while they, you know, regrow something for you to, you know, to a walk around body.
You're a friendly pig.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've lost the previous week that, you know, that since your last backup, but you're still around. And so we'll essentially, in a way, we'll be bulletproof, because we're not going to get rid of the guns, because we have close to 500 million guns in America.
Not that many people.
We're close to the point where we have 2 guns for every adult American. It doesn't mean that we're all packing heat. Only a third of U.S. households are gun-owning households, but those households, they like guns. They have a bunch of different guns for different purposes. Yeah. Because have you ever held a gun, used a gun?
I have never shot one, no.
They're fun as hell. You pow, 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 pow. You shoot at stuff and, like, you know, and
I did that as a kid and I liked it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the first time I held a BB gun, I got so excited I shot
yeah.
me like, ah, poop! I shot myself in the knee, and
I
luckily it was
love that.
just a BB gun.
Yeah.
But
We had those one. It was like it was a little. What could be a little explosive in a toy that a match could set it off or something like that. It was like
yeah, I mean, we like I
yeah,
would build
it made a
car
noise anyways. It made a
No,
spark and
I was a little maniac where I had so many adventures from with fireworks, blowing stuff up. I'm supposed to be wearing a hearing aid in this ear, partially because of so much stuff blew up next to my head as I was getting ready to throw it.
oh, Rick, we're getting out of time. But that was a great segue. I would love to talk more about explosives as a child and what it's like now. Is it getting better for the kids? Can they experience it?
I don't know that kids like love blow. I would assume that what they love like we
Yeah,
had so little entertainment.
that's true.
It was
We
just
created our own in so many ways.
yeah,
Building
which was
forts,
like
tree houses,
I mean my 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 siblings and I we were bored and we stuffed some clothes with crumpled up newspaper and stood by the side of the road and threw a body in front of cars to freak out the drivers. That was we and then the driver would stop and then they'd get out of their car,
yeah,
they'd
they
chase us.
must have been infuriated.
Yeah.
It was, yeah,
And
yeah.
we'd throw snowballs at cars.
Yes, I did that.
And but we were maniacs, so we would take dog shit and
Put
put
in
it
the
in the
bag.
middle of the snowball,
Oh,
and we'd be like, "This is going to be great. Poop is going to go on their car." No, it was like throwing a rock because you know poop freezes.
yeah,
We go thunk against the car, and again, like people would be furious. They'd chase us down. They bring us to the front door and like, where's your mom? And but like that entertainment is so shitty compared to the stuff you can watch and do on your phone.
right. Yeah. But it was an exercise, and it was also a shared exercise of creativity to create things, um, to entertain yourself. And, I think that may be a lost art. And is that good or bad? Well, I think what I'm coming to the conclusion to wrap up the show, Rick, is that the answer to the question is life getting worse is it depends. It depends upon your perspective. And what about thinking about life in a different way and thinking about life in a hopeful way? Because isn't the point is to be as happy as you can be as often as you can be and just be okay with whatever life is and just accept it? And if you would adopt that perspective, you look at life one way, it's not getting better or worse, it just is. But if you adopt a different perspective of it used to be better and compared to what it used to be like, which is often fictionalized, but you compare it that way and you're going to be unhappy. And so one of the things is you have the power of choice now. And that was taken away from me when I bent my knee to the tyranny of addiction. But I've got the power of choice now, and I can choose what makes me feel happy, content, serene, calm. That's the path I want to walk today, rather than the path that led to annoyance, aggravation, anxiety. And so that's my choice now. And so I think what I would tell Nanette is it's your choice. It's like
and
getting worse or better.
and I would say that all the changes are forcing us to evaluate what is really of value and what it means to be human. In the future, am I going to still be human if I have a pig kidney? Well, yeah. And can I be a good person and show off my butt on OnlyFans? Um, I'd say probably yeah.
Yeah.
But like the people of 50 years ago would be like, "What?
Ah,
You're showing like cleavage and your butt and your
yeah.
what?" Like people. I mean, imagine what people of 50 years ago G strings were for strippers.
Right. And but the thing is we're getting back into judging. We're people judging, and what I was taught was if you're pointing your finger, the one point is pointing at the person, the other fingers are pointing back at you. So
well, you got people say, yeah, you have four fingers pointing back at you, and then you have to say, no, look at your hand. You have three fingers pointing back at you, and you got your thumb pointing up in the air.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good. Tutte bene. Okay. Thank you again, Rick.
Thank
it's
you.
Wonderful to have spent this 12 episodes with you.
Yeah, it's been a nice season.
Yeah. All right, so we'll figure out what's next. All
okay.
Right? So for now, goodbye.
Bye.
And give into the nap if you have to. That was Rick Rosner, Emmy-nominated writer. And this is the final episode of Eade IT. It's been a 12-episode season. And if you go to airu.tv, you can see previous episodes of this show and other shows, including Calm Down with James Eade, and also the season Change Your Mind, because it's possible, even when you're older, to change our minds, to look at things differently, to adopt a new perspective. I know it was true for me. I was able to look at the world differently. And this is the kind of the topic discussion today of, is life worse than it was? It depends on how you look at it and how you choose to look at it. So thank you so much for paying attention while I was talking with Rick about whatever the studio audience asked us. Thank you again.